Hey guys, my name is Ivo from mytestedasp.net. In this video I'm going to show you a cool reflection technique which allows you to be a little bit lazy with your code. It's useful with code that is repetitive and code that is constantly doing the same thing over and over and over again. Um, for example, the service registration in ASP.NET Core. Just to say, this technique is useful in quite a lot of situations. So, even if you're not an ASP.NET Core developer, you may find something new here which you can use in your code base. So, the idea is in ASP.NET Core, when I register services, I need to register them one by one by giving interface to type. And if I have a lot of services, for example 10 or 20, I will have to register them one by one like this. For example, iUser service maps to user service, iCommands service maps to command service, and so on. Essentially that's repetitive code, which what I would like to do is to automate it. I would like to make some sort of a convention which will allow me to register these services automatically for me. And again, this technique can be useful in quite a lot of situations, so I believe you will like it. What I have here in my app is I have services which are contained in the block services project, and I would like them to be registered automatically in my web project. First, I always create infrastructure folder. The infrastructure folder is containing just some architecture code, for example service collection extensions. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another service collection at conventional services, and here I may decide to provide the assemblies from which the services are going to be registered. I may also get these assemblies from the app domain. If you're not familiar with the app domain and what an app domain is, let me know in the comments below and I will create a video about it. But I can get all the assemblies from the app domain. So there's quite a lot of options to get to that assembly, but I'm going to use the most simple one. Most simple one, which is I'm going to use a type from the assembly and get the assembly from that type. You can use whatever you like. If your services are not in one single assembly, you may need to use the params version and register your services like Automapper is registered here by providing a little bit of code and giving each assembly one by one. As you wish. I'm going to use something simple. Good. What I have to do now is to provide a way for the services to be registered. I will create a common folder. You may extract that folder to a project, for example blog.common, if you need it to be a project, if it's used in more than one place. And I'm going to create three interfaces here. The first one will be iService. The second one will be iSingleton service. The whole idea here is to provide a way to recognize the different types of services, because the default ASP.NET Core framework uses three types of services: scoped, per request, singleton, which is one object for the whole app, and transient, which is new object every time we need a dependency. So I'm going to use these three interfaces to mark my service and to say what kind of service I would like to use. For example, currently the iArticle service is registered as a transient, so I'm going to use that. Let's call services at conventional services. It should be services. Add conventional services and remove the manual registration of the iArticle service. Then I'm going to mark the iService interface as a transient service, and the only thing left to do is to write the code here so that my web application is using the dependencies correctly. I'm going to start it to see how it won't work. If I go to the articles, it will give me unable to resolve service for type iArticle service. Good. Now let's fix that. Before we fix it, I would like to say that this functionality already exists in a Screwtor and a NuGet package. So if you want to use a third-party tool and not implement the code yourself, you can use Screwtor. Screwtor is allowing you to register services automatically by convention. But currently we're not talking about third-party services. We want to learn the reflection technique here, so I'm going to implement it by myself. Okay, first I want to use and cache the three interfaces. Service interface type is type of iService, which is blog.services, blog.common, blog.services, actually it's services.common. Then I will have the singleton interface and the scoped which is a scoped service. Great. I always prefer to cache my reflection calls. For example, when I call typeof, I make sure that I'm not calling typeof more than once for the same type. It's always better to have this kind of code extracted. It's a minor optimization technique, but it makes your code dry. You don't repeat yourself, you don't copy paste code. So either cache it as a field, private static service type, or cache it as a variable. It follows the best practices. Okay, so now I need to find all my assemblies which contains services, and currently I have only one, so it's easy, but if you have more, you know what to do. So what I want to do, I will say give me the service interface type dot assembly. Give me the assembly of this type, which is block.services essentially. Then give me all types which are public. Then I would like to find these types that are classes, because essentially what I want to do, I want to find the implementations which implement an interface with the same name. That's my idea here. So find all classes which are not abstract, because abstract classes cannot be part of the dependency injection system. So we need to skip those. Then extract the service which is essentially the interface with the same name but with I in front of it, and the implementation which is the same type. That's the idea here. So find the class which is not abstract and get the interface. Then make sure the service exists, because a lot of classes will be found here, but we only need these which have the service implementation. Great, so let me check whether that code works. I'm going to start it. And I got the article service. Great. If you're worried that this reflection code may be slower, yeah, you're right. It will be a little bit slower than to register the services directly. But that's completely fine, because this code will be run only once during our application startup. So it's fine to have a little bit of overhead there, because otherwise each request afterwards will be as fast as possible. So we don't need to optimize this reflection code. This reflection code is not part of the hot path in our application. The hot path is the code which is executed constantly all the time. And this reflection shenanigan style of registering the services will be executed only once. So we are completely fine. If you would like, you can cache or not use link, but it's not necessary. It's fast enough to use it this way. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to for each all the types I found and register them depending of their service type. But before that, I would like to thank my sponsors. And as you may already know, I'm creating open source libraries, mainly for the ASP.NET framework, this one and this one. And they're essentially fluent testing libraries which allow easy, strongly typed assertions of web applications. You can test controllers, services, routes, quite a lot of things. And these projects turned out quite huge. They have currently more than 20 packages. They have more than 2 million downloads. All of them, not the library itself. And they take quite a lot of my free time to develop. Luckily, I have volunteers who help me with the code. You're great guys, thank you very much. But essentially, it will be very helpful for the project if you decide to back it up with some small donation or become a company sponsor if you want to receive more exposure. Some people and some companies already did, so I'm extremely thankful to them. You guys rock. All the backers are listed here. So if you like my content, if you like my videos, my tools, whatever it is, you may support me and you have my eternal gratitude. Currently, two companies are supporting the projects, that's Softuni and Smart IT. Thank you guys, you're truly great. If your company wants to receive some sort of an exposure, currently the GitHub pages are visited more than 5,000 times per month. I'm also saying on each YouTube video, I'm also saying a huge thanks. So if your company wants to receive additional exposure, that's the way. Great, now let's continue. We need to check these types. So if service interface type is assignable from type.service, then I need to register the service as a transient. Else, if it's singleton, I will need to register it as a singleton. And last but not least, if it's a scoped, I will need to register it as a scoped service. And that should be it. This code works fine with normal services. Let me test it for exceptions. Yep, it's working. No more unable to find a dependency of type exception. So essentially we created a conventional service resolver. It should be production ready, but keep in mind that it may not work in all available scenarios. For example, if you have generic services, it may not work with them, so you may need to adapt it, but for the most common usage it's perfectly fine. I wanted to show you this technique because it's quite useful when you tend to repeat a lot of code and when you tend to do a lot of stuff multiple times. As you can see, we no longer need to register each service separately. What I need to do is I need to create the new service, make an implementation, iUser service for example, make an implementation and just mark it as a service, for example, iSingleton service. And if I implement it and have the class, my startup file will automatically register it, so I don't need to do it by myself. So essentially I'm being lazy here, but that's the whole idea of being a programmer. Just to make a quick summary, we decided to use reflection because we are lazy, and we created a conventional way to register the services in our app. The idea here is to find all the assemblies in which I have services, get all the types which are not abstract and are classes, find the interface which has the same name as the class but with I in front of it, and then check what type of service it is to register it. And that's pretty much it, and we have a conventional service registration now. If you have multiple assemblies, you can provide them here like with the automapper. Like I said, this technique is not only useful with ASP.NET Core services. In my next video I'm going to show you how to use the same technique in the AutoMapper mapping registrations, because essentially we have the same thing here. We're calling give this type this mapping type, give this type this mapping type, and we can automate that quite fast. So if you find this video useful, hit the like button, leave a comment below if you are a fan of reflection, and again, I will be very thankful if you give my projects a star, or start using them, or contribute, or become a backer, whatever you like. Thank you guys, and bye.